But like this is not, no, really, don't do this. It just make me cry. I already cried yesterday. That's it. Well, we'll see what I can do today. So basically the questions will be asked by the players today. Is that right? And the journalists will be playing football instead. So I see that someone is actually overweight. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I would like to ask you to first introduce yourself before asking the questions, and just ask the questions one at a time. Thank you very much. Well, today I would like to take the floor first in this day that is slightly different from the others, and I'm really glad to see here not only our Chief Sport Officer but also the first squad. But before starting, I would like to remind anyone who wants to ask questions, whether it's the players or the journalists, today I'm not going to answer any questions on the Juventus coach for the next season, 2019 and 20. As Max said yesterday evening, there will be a coach, so you can be absolutely say positive about that. But I'm here today to celebrate Max, a coach that alone has been able to write the history of Juventus. When we were talking about 5 consecutive Scudetti, we were talking about the Juventus of Edoardo Agnelli of the 1930s, and basically, since then, we have not been able to win a consecutive five consecutive Scudetti, and Max has been able to achieve these all alone. But some anecdotes before getting to the conclusion of an extraordinary story. I remember when in May 2013, we were in London with Fabio, and we were in the back rows of a UEFA coach in order to see the final Champions League final between Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. And when we were looking outside the window, I saw Max getting out of the hotel, and then I touched Fabio's elbow, and I told him, well, look there, probably he will be our next Juventus coach. And that's basically how the whole story started. And so in May, in 2013, before actually seeing Max on the Juventus bench, we had to wait 14 months, as on the 16th of July, as you well remember, on that day, on the 16th of July 2014, he accepted to become, among lots of criticism, actually, the Juventus coach. And also in this case, I would like to mention a few funny anecdotes, because the Continenza, before receiving the big applause by all the supporters, we were informed that we were waiting for us, they were waiting for us in front of the Vinovo training center, and then the driver arrived and actually decided to get inside the Vinovo training center from a secondary entrance that actually I did not understand. I still don't understand, because I actually stopped Matteo and told him, well, let's pass from the front entrance because we have nothing to hide, and we have to be very proud because we have nothing to hide, because we were absolutely convinced of the choice that we made. So we closed that year, and there was my first tweet, one of the few tweets that I made, and I confirmed that it is on the 16th of July, and starting again to win, it was really meant to have guts, and that was a choice that Max demonstrated. He was really brave. He was very courageous. So he's been the third coach in history in terms of presence, and he's also the most long-lasting after Trapattoni. Is the first coach in history in terms of victories, 75.5%, 5 Scudetti, 4 Coppa Italia, 2 Super Cups, 2 Champions League finals, so lots of trophies, and these are amazing figures. And I can confirm that for me, these have been 5 wonderful years, lots of affection, respect, esteem, friendship, sharing, defeats, work, fatigue. but above all, lots of wins, lots of victories. Moreover, in these 5 years, we have been going through, we have been living close to each other for the last 1 hour, 1 year and a half with Barzagli, which was a third neighbor. So basically, for this last 1 year and a half, we have had breakfast together and the several dinners that you already heard of, very pleasant dinners, because we had the pleasure to share our life and work here at Juventus, but also we really enjoyed the possibility to have personal moments. We saw each other's children grow up. So there was this wonderful atmosphere and relationship. But apart from the sports part and the figures, we remember what happened up to Berlin. Then the year after, in October, we were in a rather critical situation, and then we were able to achieve 15 consecutive victories between 2015 and 2016, when honestly, and I remember that everybody was waiting for Juventus' funeral, and then they had to had last year when we arrived this year, basically winning the championship, the Italian league, with great advance compared to the other teams. So it's certainly a remarkable achievement. And in this background, what really makes me particularly proud of is that I have found a true friend. And this is the most important thing. Not only we have shared a project from a professional point of view, but in this long journey, I have found an honest and sincere friend that I can really consult on, and on many different topics. But in this very moment, I also have to make an assessment of the future plans for Juventus. And of course, we will be going ahead. The first squad, when we come back in July, obviously, will have again as its main objective to win. And also the managers will do their best in order to strengthen this group of players, in order to give them the opportunity to express at best, in the best conditions, both in Italy and in Europe. We have seen great growing potential for the Juventus women, and also the under-23 has been doing very well, and so will certainly give a very important contribution also next year. So we have great investments also for the real estate, because hopefully we have to find a real house for our women and the under-23, either in Venovio or in Alessandria. And as I said yesterday evening, we need to know that as a football club, we should evaluate investments in new technologies, especially in the artificial intelligence, and trying to better understand how it could be adapted to our training methods. And as far as our future plans are concerned, well, Juventus will always have to be avant-garde and focused on innovation for our future. Well, I do trust our club, and together with Nedved Baratic and Giorgio Ricci, that have the operative leadership as far as this type of choices are concerned. Then, to conclude, and this is certainly the hardest part, because there are not factual elements, real elements, apart from some back comments that I've been reading over the last few days. I have to say that when I was thinking after the defeat against Ajax that we could go ahead, well, with Max it was absolutely very sincere thought, and then several reflections followed that moment, which demonstrated the capacity of analysis of a group, the coach included, in knowing what the right decision had to be made. And I have to say that obviously I'm quite sad because of this decision, and I'm also quite emotional about this, because basically we try to understand all together that probably this was the right time, the right moment, in order to close one of the greatest cycles in the history of Juventus. So this wonderful cycle has had Max as a coach, so he's certainly been the main representative. So I would like to make this unusual thing. So usually the jerseys are provided when you arrive and not when you leave, but that's something that we want to give you. History alone. And a big round of applause, as it's really sincere and honest, for what you have been doing, what you have given to Juventus and to me. Thank you very much, Max, and thank you very much, Andrea. So, shall I speak first? What do you expect? Good afternoon, Rai Sport. I'm here. 2 questions, one for the president and then for Allegri. As you already said, you anticipated the question, the fact that after Juventus, Ajax, you expressed yourself in a certain way, and Mr. Allegri also told you that he was willing to stay. So can you maybe explain what has changed in this last month since then? And if you could clarify, obviously in the suitable limits of the things that you have been talking about and that we have also been writing about, or probably some controversies, some different opinions and points of view between Nedved and you. But that's what I said, basically. Well, I explained it. I'll say that again because I already an answer. Apart from all the comments that have been made, what we have done over the last month was the analysis carried out by a group of professionals that could understand that apart from what had been declared in a very specific moment, also as a result of the great emotions and feelings after a match that was defeated, and of course we really suffered for that. So in absence of really factual elements, as I said before, and I'm repeating and stressing again the same things, all together we realized that it was absolutely fair to conclude this cycle with a success. And this is the result of an awareness and of a very deep analysis that has been made by many different clever people that have understood that it was important to close in this particular moment rather than dragging ahead. One question to Mr. Allegri. So apart from the fact, could you maybe just remind us what's the best moment that you have experienced in these 5 years, even if there are many moments, I guess. But you already said that you had the new Juventus basically for the last 6 months, but actually you realized that the idea you had 6 months ago could not be put into practice. Well, first of all, good afternoon, everybody, and I would like to thank the President for the wonderful words about me. I would like to thank all the players. Well, slowly I'll get there, I hope. Of course, very slowly and gradually. So I would like to thank all the players for what they have given me this year's group, and the first and the second and the third, because many players have been changed. So lots of satisfactions, and I'm now leaving a winning team that has great potential next year to repeat these remarkable achievements in Italy as well as in the Champions League. This year, unfortunately, several elements contributed not to be able to get to the end of the Champions League. But as far as what I had in mind for Juventus and when I understood it, well, we have been talking a lot and discussing and also expressing our thoughts about the future of Juventus and especially the good of Juventus. And obviously the club then made its own assessments and evaluations, and so they realized that it was suitable to find another coach instead of me. But this doesn't change anything. It changes nothing, because actually the relationship that I have with President Andrea absolutely wonderful, as well as with Paratici and Nedved. When I arrived here, I found a club that was incredibly organized. At that time, also, Marotta was part of this group, the former general manager, and we have grown a lot. We have grown together, and I thought it was now the right moment in order to leave each other in the best possible way. And I'm absolutely convinced that I'm leaving a club that is really solid, strong, with a wonderful group of players from a technical point of view and also from a personal point of view. because in order to win, not only you need to be players, but you need to be men. And these wonderful men are here at Juventus. I'm leaving a club with the president that is really wonderful, really a great decision maker, Fabio and Nedved, that are younger than me. I met them when they were very young men, and now they have become very important managers. And so tomorrow, just give me a sec. Tomorrow evening, we have to celebrate. We have to celebrate because there are two things that we want to celebrate. First is the fact that we won our Scudetto, and the second is Andrea Barzagli that is leaving. He's going, so the professor of the defenders is going to leave, of course, without depriving Leo, Martin, Giorgio, and Daniele of their values. So tomorrow will have to be a wonderful night where we have to celebrate, because these last 5 years have been absolutely wonderful. One question, Fabrizio Ferrero, Mediaset. So one question to Mr. Allegri and then the president. So obviously we see that you're particularly emotional and moved. It's very clear, it's very visible. So this means that the relationships that you have with the whole club are absolutely very good. So what about this decision? So is it something that you can assimilate, that you can digest? And then something I would like to ask also the president, was it something that was conditioned also by the external environment? Well, I'm just going through it very quietly, because as far as our professional relationships are concerned, well, in the end, of course, you might take different directions. I think it's a very physiological thing, but as I already pointed out, and I would like to stress it again, because I read something that was not correct. For example, the fact that I had asked the club and the president more years for our contract and a complete revolution. Actually, we didn't talk about these, but we talked about other elements. And when smart people like us realize that physiologically we should separate, there's no need to go ahead. So basically, that's what happened during those several meetings, because I read that several meetings were held. So I had dinner at President's house one night. I know you chased me, but you couldn't find me. And then another time, no, it was yesterday. No, actually the day before yesterday, we met in the headquarters together with Fabio, Nedved, and the President. And we understood, we actually realized, well, actually the President is a decision maker, as I said before, and so he made this decision, and so that it was no longer possible to go ahead, and that I couldn't be Juventus coach for the next year. So it's much easier than expected. But one thing is sure, that we have had wonderful 5 years together, and that's why we must be proud of this. Than all the rest. And I know you're journalists, you like writing, but there's nothing more than this, basically. And as I come from Livorno and, you know, Chiellini as well, it seems quite strange, because we in Livorno, we just eat 5 and 5. That is the cake that is traditionally made. So, you know, 5 championships, five Italian leagues and 5 Scudetti. So this means that I'm really happy, but I'm also very, very emotional in this moment, very moved. But that's it. Enough is enough, because tomorrow we have to celebrate. We have a match to play, and we have a nice party. So then all the rest doesn't really matter. So next year we'll be starting in the best possible way with a wonderful team, a wonderful club, and wonderful players. So I can see that Mr. Allegri's emotion is quite visible. What about you? Also, the external environment and the supporters. So, despite all the victories, a part of the supporters have not been really very close and supportive of Mr. Allegri, not only when he arrived, but also in these last 5 years. Do you think that the popular sentiment has contributed to this? Maybe it has affected your decision. So, is it something that you considered when you made a decision, or maybe it didn't have an impact on you? Well, actually, what contributed? And then I'm getting moved. Well, the heart really contributed, of course, but in the end, as we manage companies, we must be able to make the right decisions, and we must be able to make these decisions in the moments when these decisions have to be made. But then, of course, only the future will tell us whether the decisions or the choices that we have made have been the right ones. But that's quite clear, of course, to everyone. But apart from the considerations, external considerations that can be made, as usual, we leave this situation from the inside. So it's like, when you get into a bar and you make comments about what happens in that club or another club, in that company, in any sector, if these people, you're not inside the dynamics of a company, of course, the external people will never really understand the elements that are the basis of certain choices and decisions. And these elements, indeed, are crucial. And so this means that some responsibilities will have to be attributed inside a company. And that's why, of course, we express our opinions. You know that I don't like yes men, but I do want to hear strong opinions. And once I have listened to all these opinions, of course, choices will have to be made. And this is part of the roles that each one of us play. So those that can't put up with these pressures obviously want to be able to manage sport company or companies in general in any sector. Maurizio Crosetti, Repubblica. Well, I'm quite honest. I expected to come here today and just see a kind of performance on stage, in a very typical Turin style, because I come from Turin, so, that sometimes we are criticized and considered as being polite, but sometimes not really sincere. So the fact that we can see a lot of emotions, and these emotions are absolutely real. But, President, the explanation that you have just given, and that's the fact that there are moments where decisions have to be made and it's the right moment to separate is a precondition. So I would like to know something more about it. Probably you won't tell us any more details, but obviously couples can break up for many different reasons. But when you love each other so much, probably you could, break up because there is no longer passion, which could be your case. And maybe there are some couples that decide to go on together, but they actually realize that they should have broken up much earlier. So I have not really understood, because among the reasons they have made, because as far as Max is concerned, he clearly said that it was the club that made his decision not to go on. So is there one cause that probably was stronger than the others? Well, I would say that, between Max and I, we're not really the right example when talking about a couple relationship. Well, actually, yes, because I know what happens after several years. But apart from jokes, President, it's a nice joke, but it's not enough. It's not sufficient. And then I would like to ask a question also to Max. On relationships between couples? No, please. No. So, Max, I would like to know, so what about this last month? It seems that you've become someone that doesn't really help teams to play well, that you're just focused on the result. And so modernity probably imposes a choice of a coach that also entertains people to promote brands, just to make TV journalists happy, or maybe supporters that, just change direction very easily. So how much does all this criticism have an impact on you? Well, actually, didn't really affect me. It was just a confrontation, a debate, a discussion with everyone, with the opinionists, with the journalists. But I think it's pretty normal for these things to happen, because at the end of the story, we'll have, to hit the target or the targets that were set by the club. When you work at Juventus, you must be aware of the fact that you must reach these targets and win. And at the end of this season, we have been able to win the league and the Super Cup. So it's been a really wonderful season. Then playing well or bad, well, at the end of the story, everything depends on the final result, of course. Sometimes I hear, journalists saying on the 92nd minute where the team has been controlling the whole match, and then the opponent scores the minute before, and so they actually change their mind and just say that the other team played much better. So you, as journalist, of course, somehow mediate because of the result, but me as a coach will always have to analyze, and I've always had to analyze the performance and not the result itself, because of course, a result can be achieved through a performance. So I don't want to talk about any technicalities in this moment. It's a wonderful moment because tomorrow we'll be celebrating, of course. But nonetheless, I have to say that, of course, when we play football matches, a lot depends on strategies, mentally understanding the match. It is not always possible to play well because, playing well for 38 matches is impossible. But it's true that if you play bad and then you lose, obviously you will lose the Scudetto as well. And this is if we always have this winning mentality, this is a typical feature of Juventus, and no one likes to lose, of course. But then, of course, if you just get contented with, leaving the pitch and said, okay, we played well, but we actually didn't win, and we lost, and we arrived second, well, that's something that I don't accept. I had the experience in Cagliari where, after 5 matches, 0 points. And I actually had this experience. So everybody was praising us because we were playing very well, but basically there were no results because we couldn't win, because in the end, what really matters is the result. We needed to win. So the fact that, of course, you can play to have fun, but of course there is already competitiveness. And when you play among children, as you can just imagine when you play for Juventus, where there is a winning mentality. And of course, even if you win, there might be moments where you play well, and other moments where you play less well, and other moments where you play very, very well, and where you just, kick the ball and you score a goal. So I remember also in the past years, it's not that we were playing wonderful football. So I remember that Gigi, for example, had the record of matches without actually conceding any goals. And maybe we had 2, 3, 4 occasions where we didn't play well, but we were solid. So in football, defending shouldn't be a shame, because I want to stress again that the great matches and okay, there is tomorrow's. This is the third last press conference before the end of the season, and I want to stress this again. Basically, the match that we played in Cardiff, and there is here Cristiano, so we didn't lose because they scored more goals, because the great challenges are won by great defenses. In that case, Real Madrid as a team defended better than us, because in the first half we defended very well, and in the second half we didn't defend well enough, and so that's why they won. So in football, what does that mean? That you play well? I have not really understood it. I'm 52 years old and I have not understood yet what it means. If someone can explain it to me, I'll try to understand how to play well all the time. Maybe I will try it in the future, but basically we have to consider facts. As I've already pointed out several times, in life, in all roles, there are different categories, and so there are players that can win the champions, there are others that will never win champions, others that don't win the league, others that will be downgraded, and others that will never be downgraded. There are managers who win, coaches that win, and others that never win. So if you never win, of course, well, but there must be a reason behind this. Jesus Christ, well, I have to say that. So I remember, back in Livorno again, in the so-called Gabbione, because, I remember very well. I didn't lose the tournaments when I was younger. There must be a reason. there were other people like me that always won these tournaments. So in proportion, that's important. And others have never won. So there must be a reason if every summer these tournaments were always won by the same teams and the others were always losing. I don't know why, but that's the thing. So they actually won all the time. So we have to consider this. So it's what really matters is the profession, is the practical experience. There's lots of theory. And, for example, I was talking some days ago to Fabio. I had Cellino in Cagliari as the first president. I don't know how he succeeded, and he was able to bring Brescia to Serie A and basically was downgraded only once. I don't know how he succeeded in that, but he achieved this. And this means that he is better than the others, or those that win are better than the others. So whether you like it or not, but that's a fact. Then, of course, it's quite normal that those that lose, they can't but say that they played well. I don't want to give examples. I want to give examples because otherwise, of course, it would just, these explanation would completely collapse. Tomaselli, Corriere della Sera, would like to ask you, 1 month, half ago, you promoted your book where you talk about the fact of being a coach and a manager, and I asked you whether you would like to be a manager-coach, and you replied yes, because this means that I will be staying at Juventus for a very long time. Is this the reason why you're leaving, because you can't be a manager-coach? Well, absolutely not. So in this last 5 years, the fact of being a coach and a manager means to be part of the club, that is being involved in addressing all the company issues from the organization of any possible marketing plans, also from a technical point of view as far as the players are concerned. So it's not that I have never taken part in this. On the contrary, I've always been involved. And that's a coach that is also called a manager, because it's very close to the club, very close to the company, and I've always been proud of this. While others that maybe are not so familiar with this concept just considered me as a yes man that agrees on everything, as Andrea pointed out. Not at all. If you're part of a club, if you're part of a company, you can either agree or maybe disagree, because this kind of confrontation just makes us grow. But the important thing is to be able to express opinions and to be involved in the discussion of all these issues. And I did this also when I was for years at Milan FC, and of course also at Cagliari, that obviously is a smaller club. But these big clubs that basically is a company like this, it means that the coach must know all the problems, all the issues that are part of a corporate dynamic. So this is not a company or a club that should, get saved, that is not listed on the stock exchange, that only plays one match a week. But there are many different problems and issues to be addressed, and so that's why a coach must be aware of them. And personally, I do like to be involved this way, but maybe when I stop, I will have a different role, maybe as a manager. But anyway, this is something that I've always been fond of, because it's my personal culture and approach. I want to know new things. I don't want just to focus, on the lineup and just, make the exchanges of the players. Before giving the floors to the others, as there are lots of questions and we won't be able to listen to all of them. So please, those that will be asking the next questions, just one question at a time. Gamba, Repubblica, one at a time, one for the coach and one for the president. Okay, just one question to the president. I take on the responsibility to be maybe criticized. You said that you're not going to answer questions on the coach. Maybe you can tell us a couple of things. First of all, what kind of coach are you looking for Juventus? Not the name, but the distinctive characters. And can you clarify the position of Conte so we know his situation? Can you tell us whether he will be coming to Juventus or not? I don't really care about the rest. Okay, next question. I've already asked. No comment. We have Barzagli here. That could be our next coach. What do you think? Vaciaco Tutto Sport. Good afternoon, Max. I would like to ask you, as you quite surprised me with these emotions. So do you feel a Juventus person, a Juventus supporter? If yes, and what does that mean? Well, obviously, as soon as I arrived at Juventus, I already felt a Juventus man. When I was a child, I had a Platini poster. Then when he stopped playing for Juventus, I stopped being a Juventus supporter, I have to confess, because I was really fascinated by his playing style, because I was really charmed by him, by his football style. Anyway, I've always been a Juventus supporter, because, you know, lots of friends were criticizing me for coming here. Well, what does that mean? It means being part of the family, of a family that has owned this club for 120 years and that has a very precise DNA that has been growing a lot, because here they are all hard workers, there are lots of discipline, and this means that I have learned a lot in these 5 years, and I have been able to grow a lot and improve. Because somehow I tend to be a little bit more, you know, eccentric and extravagant, but somehow here I've really learned a lot. Olsen, beIN Sport, the question to our president. I would like to know if the decision was made before these meetings that you attended, or during these meetings you made a decision. Well, it's true. This is a decision that has been the result of reflections, of considerations. So it's been a gradual process with lots of emotions, as you were just witnessed personally, because when we have to deal with some issues, then altogether we need to understand that it's in everybody's interest to make this decision that is the best decision for Juventus. So it was a process, that's right. It's not that we met because we had nothing to do, so we just like to meet and have dinner together. But of course we met because we had to discuss, and then at the end of several reflections and analyses that were made, we identified this as the best choice in this moment. Then, of course, all the reasonings, you know, whether is the club that is responsible or not responsible for these decisions. Of course, it's the club that is responsible for these decisions. So it's not that obviously Max could renew his contract on his own. Of course, everything depends on the club. So these decisions are made by the club. So as I already said several years ago, this is a club that has its own history, and so no person inside the club is indispensable. So we are all useful, but no one is indispensable, starting from me. So just to use a metaphor, so from me to the people working in the warehouses, if you consider, you know, the history of Juventus, of all the different presidents and coaches and players and the people working in the warehouses, and just think about Romero, and you remember him with great dedication to the club and to work. So this is part of the history of Juventus. It's not just a history of one single person, but this is the history of a club that should be bigger than any single individual. So inside the companies, of course, there are people having different responsibilities that will have to be put into practice in the interest of the club as a whole. Good afternoon, Antinelli, Rai Sport. One question to Max. As Mr. Agnelli pointed out, when you arrived, you were actually insulted. But then after 5 years, if you read the newspapers, we read about the fact that Allegri has not been able to conquer all the Juventus supporters. Have you ever wondered why you have never really been able to earn their support? Well, I've never really wondered, never really asked it to myself, because I have to say that all the supporters have always been very positive to me and always expressed their great respect and affection. And I got also moved and emotional, you know, because I'm not really used to these kind of things. But I remember that in the stadium, from the stand, of course, I'm a human being, so obviously, and so I get emotional. I can be moved. So it's not that I'm completely detached, but I try to be detached when I work. But of course, my job is also based on emotions, because otherwise I won't be able to perform it in the right way. So actually, I never really asked this question. It's true that you can't be supported by everybody, so not everybody can like you, but it's also true that contradiction and contrast make you grow. Then when I arrived here, when I signed the contract, I remember when I arrived at Vinovo, there was some protest, but I actually have one image clear in my mind. The very first image that when I arrived at Vinovo, I was, stepping onto a field where Midsummer Dream, the first horse I've ever had on those fields, when there was the hippodrome, had won 3 races plus another 2. So for me, it was a great emotion also for that reason, because, I imagined the old hippodrome and my horse that could win the race. So that's the very first thing that I thought about when I arrived there. Then, of course, I was absolutely, positive about the season because it was a wonderful season, and that's why we reached the final, the Champions League final. The last 3 questions. Antonio Magaglia, La Stampa. As I am one of the oldest in this conference room, I would like to thank you for your great politeness and willingness to cooperate with all of us. So, what about the future? I'm not obviously asking you where you're going and what you will be doing. So, do you think you will be taking a rest? Do you think you will be going abroad, as you already spoken about these, or you just wait and see what will happen? Well, actually, I know nothing. I just know that tomorrow we'll have to celebrate, and then as far as my future is concerned, we'll have to see. Maybe I will take a break. It could be something positive, because I do need to rest. And it's quite normal that after the 15th of July, I will start, considering some other job opportunities, but we'll have to wait and see. I will be very quiet, evaluating each proposal, and then I will consider what I can do. Otherwise, I could even take a gap year where I could just focus on myself and my children, my partner, my father, my sister, so all the people that have always been very close to me, to that gang of friends that just like, to have fun. And so probably I will be having fun with them. But tomorrow we just want to celebrate. Andrea Ramazzotti, Corriere dello Sport. One question to President Agnelli. I would like to know if this has been the most suffered decisions you have made since you've been leading the company. Yes. Yes. I can definitely say yes, that has been the one I suffered more for, as I already said at the beginning. Definitely yes. Fabiola Della Valle, Gazzetta dello Sport. One question to the President. I would like to know if you can tell us something more about this new Juventus. You already said that you have a new Juventus in mind. So what about the future Juventus, and how different should it be from the current one? Well, that's a question. Well, you already know me quite well. It's a question that you will have to ask to Paratici when you have the opportunity to talk to him. He will answer this question, and he will tell you how the squad, how the team will be defined. Of course, the separation of roles inside a company, the fact that there are different tasks that are delegated, and then everything will be depend on Fabio Paratici. So when you have the opportunity to talk to him, he will give you these answers. He has responsibilities, and he has specific targets to reach. You have known me for 10 years, and this is always the same old story. They're always the same answer. Just to remind you that Juventus is a company. Thank you very much indeed. And a big round of applause to all of you.